Hello, everybody, and welcome back to, another story. So, to continue celebrating 10 years of being one Death Eater, how about we step out of being one Death Eater? How about a time before I was one Death Eater? Now, I don't remember, I don't remember much when I was a kid because I lived in Indiana from the time I was born up to around 13. So I lived in a small town in Indiana known as Delphi, Indiana. I was born in West Lafayette, Indiana, home of a very, very interesting college known as Purdue. Purdue University, the same Purdue University that the infamous astronaut Neil Armstrong went to school there at Purdue University. Also home to the Purdue Boilermakers. Still technically a fan since it is my hometown after all. I still have a bit of love for the good old Boilermakers. And for those that are wondering, yes, I kind of am a Drew, what's his name? Quarterback of the Saints, Drew fucking, can't remember his name. He's the quarterback of the Saints, and I can't remember his name. If somebody can remind me what his name is, I'd be great. I would greatly appreciate it, but it's on the tip of my tongue. So, and I used to hate him for the longest time. I used to hate the Saints because, being a Georgia boy now, Georgia, living in Georgia, Falcons and all that good stuff, our rivals were the Saints. So I was like, yeah, fuck the Saints with their black and gold. They need to be red and gold. Fuck you, Saints. So I didn't know the quarterback of the Saints, Drew, was also the quarterback from Purdue University. And at the time, Purdue University, their college football team was out, or at least from what I know, was one of the best with that quarterback specifically. So to me, that was probably the only time I ever got to experience it, even though I wasn't a big college sports fan at the time. I was still more or less, NFL, NASCAR, all that good stuff that a good country boy would be interested in. Now, I want to call myself a country boy since technically I lived in the middle of nowhere. Well, I want to say in the middle of nowhere because I lived in a town, a very small town. So, and this small town just so happens to be in the middle of fucking nowhere. So, it's all great and all, but being from a very small town, it's still a home to me. It's still my hometown. I still feel a lot of love for that town. So if you guys ever get a chance, I do highly recommend go up there for a little visit. There is some good historic stuff up there. Like I know there's some trails up there to walk around. They're not the best fucking trails you'll find in the world. You'll find those down here in Georgia, but up there in Indiana, you'll find a lot of interesting stuff, like Indian mountains and stuff like that. Maybe some, trails, stuff like that over in the Carroll County, Indiana area, Carroll County, Tippecanoe general area, especially the Carroll County area, or at least in the Delphi area. But to give a little more backstory as to where I'm from, though, like I said, Delphi was a very, very small town. It held, I want to say, about less than 5,000 people. And it's probably like way less than that and I'm probably over exaggerating as to how many people still live there today. Um, and it's unfortunate, like several years ago, that my very own hometown was um, in the middle of this thing that happened with these two little girls that were unfortunately slain by this murderer that is still out there in Carroll County somewhere. Um, they were slain in the Delphi area, and they lived in the Delphi area. This is a very known area to the people that live there. They pretty much know that town like the back of their own hand. So it's a very, very small town. It's one of those towns where everybody kind of knows everybody. Hell, I would be very surprised if I go back to Delphi, Indiana right now. Someone would probably recognize me and be like, "Steven, is that you? How the fuck have you been?" So, But besides the trails, the creek there, the Wabash River that kind of flows right next to the city, there's some great things I like about Delphi. There's this barber that I don't know if he's still around today, or if his barber shop is still around today, but I think it was either Pete or Dave. I can't remember what his name was. It might have been Pete, but this guy knew my dad. This guy and my dad was like best friends at one point, and he would always take me and my little brothers over to his barber shop every time we needed a haircut. It was either over there or across town to this other place, but I can't exactly remember what the places were called. It's been so long since I've got to actually travel around the Delphi area and like explore the town one more time, which will probably just be an eventual goal for me, maybe in the next year or so. I'm going to try to do that next year, in fact. If I get time, I'll just, take a minute to just travel around my hometown, and it'll be great. But it was great, being a part of a town where everybody kind of knew everybody. For a time, we went to a church called the First Assembly of God, which was down going towards our grandparents' house on my dad's side of the family. So that's right outside the Delphi area. And in between the First Assembly and Delphi was this little itty bitty area that's called Frankfort. Don't know why it's called Frankfort. It's technically part of Delphi. And I still to this day don't know why that specific area is called Frankfort. But there is a restaurant in that area that makes unbelievably good food. Or at least it had like unbelievably good food when I was still living there. I don't know if that restaurant still exists today, but oh my God, when I was still living there, that restaurant was like the greatest fucking thing I've ever had. And let me tell you, that was also the first time I ever had frog legs as an appetizer. Let me tell you, frog legs are fucking delicious. So, it's good. They're good. It's really good. It tastes just like chicken, So, highly recommend. If that restaurant still exists, I'll let you guys know about it when I take my trip next year, probably. Other than that, I lived in 3 or 4 houses in the Delphi area that I remember. Now, from what my parents tell me, that we used to live in the Lafayette area at a time. But this was when I was like extremely young, like right when I was still a baby, apparently. Um, but for like a year or so, we still lived in the Lafayette area, and then we ended up moving over to Delphi, to where my mom's cousin lives. I think I can't remember um, who she is in relation to the family, but I'm pretty sure she's my mom's cousin. Um, but anyways, we lived at that specific house for who knows how long. And then we moved a couple blocks down the road to another house. And that's the house that I specifically remember the most. Specifically because, you would recognize, if you were a kid and you recognize a specific house from like when you were a very, very small kid, that's your childhood house. This was my childhood house. And I can distinctly remember pretty much everything about this house. Like, almost completely out of memory. I could tell you where everything was. Like, we had, the usual living room stuff. The TV was in the corner. We had a couch. Dad had a recliner. And then kitchen was right behind the living room area. There was a hall that on one side my little brother and eventually my other little brother would stay in. And then you got my parents' bedroom, the bathroom that goes in between like the hall, and then behind the kitchen and dining room area would be the laundry room. And before the laundry room would be another bathroom. That'd be my bathroom. My bathroom. And then after the laundry room was my bedroom. Now, I did have my own personal bedroom for like by myself. And if I ever get a chance to visit that house again, I would still distinctly remember where everything was, simply because of just how great this memory is. And people always tell me that I have like the worst fucking memory when it comes to what I did last week or what I did yesterday or whatever. But I remember this house specifically because it's just been the house that I've lived in pretty much nearly my entire childhood life, leading up to 9 or 10 years old. By the time I was 9, we moved to, I would say across town, but it was kind of across town. We just moved a couple more blocks down the road to another part of town. It was across some railroad tracks, but it was still technically part of town. I want to say I was in 4th grade when that happened. Or it was either 3rd grade or 4th grade. I can't exactly remember when it was. And then another year goes by, or it was either another year or a year and a half goes by, because we lived right next to the railroad. So every couple of, or every hour or so, almost on cue, to the point where I was starting to like write down what kind of trains were going by, like the um, the train company, what they were carrying, and anything else specific I liked about that specific train. I had a literal journal of what kind of trains I had, or what kind of trains passed through. And that's really what started my interest in trains. Because from that point on, I started playing this wonderful game called Microsoft Train Simulator, um, which, you know, is a fantastic game. If you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, then you guys are, I would say, a little bit relatable. You guys would kind of know what years I'm talking about, because this was a very fantastic game. I loved that game to bits. So about a year and a half later, we moved across town again, but this time it was more or less right outside of town. And unfortunately, I had to change schools for whatever reason, because apparently this other school that was like 5 miles further than this other fucking school that I could have just gone to, or to the primary school that I was going to in the first place, just to finish off one more year at the same elementary school. I still to this day don't know why they told me, oh, you're too far away, we can't send the bus over there. But, you know, my best friend Caleb, who I became friends with while in my elementary school years, him and his sister moved right next door to me. But when me and Caleb were still in middle school, his sister and his little brother was still going to the same elementary school. And my mom was just sitting there like, how come they're going to the same elementary school, but my little brothers aren't going to the same elementary school? Kind of doesn't make any sense. And they're saying, oh, it's because they're across this threshold, you are not. And my mom was just telling them it's a bunch of bullshit. Your bus passes through to pick them up anyways, so why can't they just get on that bus? So it was a whole bunch of freaking nonsense, unneeded drama that just, I'm pretty sure that school didn't like us. I'm not sure what their problem was, because, you know, I wasn't the smartest kid around. I did a lot of stupid things when I was a kid, as all kids do. A lot of kids do a lot of stupid things when they're kids. I mean, we're fucking kids. What do you expect us to do? Know exactly what a knife is and know that we're not supposed to be playing with knives or, you know, shit like that. And I'm not saying I played with knives. I'm just pointing that out there as like something kids do. And unfortunately, you know, in this day and age, kids still do that. They still don't know what shit is half the time. And, you know, we have great technology like, oh, I don't know, maybe video games, for example, that the media is trying to demonize now because, oh, if you play Call of Duty, you can be classified as a terrorist. You know, shit like that. But I remember when I was living at that specific house outside of town. This was around the time Lord of the Rings was coming out in theaters. And I'm pretty sure The Two Towers had just came out on DVD. And at this time, I was hooked into The Lord of the Rings. And I'm sitting here like, is this the end of the story? Is there going to be a continuation of this story? Because there's like 2 other books to go along with, this story. And this was like around the time that I started to get interested in the good old Lord of the Rings. So this was kind of the seeds being planted of me being a huge Tolkien fan. Then the Two Towers come out. My mom tells me all about it. I'm like, oh my God, if we don't have this DVD right now, I'm going to go insane and probably be very, very sad. So my mom goes and gets the DVD, and we binge through the first movie, and then we immediately start watching the second movie. She hasn't watched it, she hasn't watched it either, so this is like our first time watching it. She's read the books, I haven't, and she's telling me about, at the same time that, the books go into a little more detail into the universe of the Lord of the Rings. And I'm sitting here just like, yeah, Mom, I'm trying to watch the movie. Can you like shut up, please? So, we watched the movie. I'm ecstatic, and immediately I want to play, you guessed it, Lord of the Rings. So, being a kid, the big imagination, me and my little brothers, we have this big fucking wooded area behind the house and across the street, like right over the hill, that we all just fucking climb and go and basically go all haywire. So we're not going very far, around our general neighborhood area, since we kind of know all the neighbors know us. So we had this little wooded area kind of mapped out, and we know where to go and where not to go. We know we're not going to go across the street to this other wooded area that's like even bigger, because that's not where Mom and Dad wants us to go, number one. Two, it's not a place that I felt comfortable going. I actually went there one time, like maybe 2 or 3 times, period. But I was not comfortable going across the street to that other wooded area, because I just didn't know what was over there. There were no houses. There wasn't any neighborhoods. There wasn't really anything over there. It was like this barrier that I'm just sitting there like, I don't think it's a good idea to go over there. So if you ever get that feeling, that's like, I don't think I'm supposed to go over there. So you just don't. So, you got your little area to do whatever in. So you kind of stay in this one area. I mean, the area that I lived in general was a very big area. Like the whole back area, the backyard area that encompassed the entire back part of the neighborhood that we lived in, or I guess this little circle loop thing that we kind of lived on. There was like 8 or 10 houses that were like in a straight complete line that followed this one road all the way around this loop, this back end of the loop. So, we were like one of the only kids that played like in the back area. So if any adults saw any kids, they were like, oh, it's those goddamn kids from 2 doors down. So, if they get hurt, we'll just go 2 doors down and be like, hey, we saw your kid bust his kneecap or whatever. But we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm sitting here, with my little brothers. We're playing Lord of the Rings. Now, the game is that we were like reenacting to the best of our abilities the scenes from the Lord of the Rings. So, I was Gandalf. My little brothers were other characters, like pretty sure my middle-aged brother was either Legolas or Aragorn. My youngest brother was Gimli, because he was the funniest, and that's who my youngest brother liked the most. So he was Gimli. My other brother was Legolas or Aragorn or whatever. I was Gandalf, and we played out scenes. So here we are playing Lord of the Rings or doing whatever. I tripped over a log. Yeah, believe it or not, I actually tripped over a log. It wasn't a very big log. It actually went up to, think of me as a little kid. It went up to my legs. So if it were today, it would probably go up like halfway to my kneecap. That's how big this log was. Now, of course, I wasn't paying attention, so I was kind of like running but looking behind me at the same time. So I was like, come on, let's go get those orcs. Let's go get Saruman and all those bad guys. Let's go get them. And I trip over this log, and I'm just sitting there like, ow, ah. But the thing is that I get up, and then I instantly feel not right. I feel like something may have stabbed me. But, I'm just sitting here like, well, I'm kind of dirty. I'm going to go, change my clothes because, it's pretty muddy out here. I don't feel comfortable. Mom's yelling at us. All right, you kids had your fun. Come inside, change your clothes, get cleaned up. Okay, so I'm going inside. I'm going to change my clothes. I take off my pants, or I unbuckle my pants, excuse me. I unbuckle my pants, and I slide them off. I don't notice it at first. It was actually my mom that noticed it. And she was getting me another pair of pants. And she's like, oh my God, what did you do to your leg? And I'm sitting there like, well, what do you mean? Oh my God. And what happened? I didn't say, oh my God. When I was like, what do you mean? I didn't finish it. It was like, what do you mean? And I looked down to my leg, to my right leg, and it's cut open. Like, there is a line that is about this long and about this wide. That's just going from I want to say about here to about here. If you don't believe me, I got a scar to prove it. So here's the scar. It's kind of hard to see with the lighting, but there's the scar. There's the scar on my leg. That proves that this shit happened. So, at this point, I'm in shock. I didn't feel any kind of pain because, again, I didn't realize that something had cut me, like a piece of glass or even, the log itself. I don't know. I still, to this day, don't know what cut me. We went to the emergency room like right then and there. And let me just tell you, the doctors were very, very surprised to not see any blood. like at all. Very surprised. Like this, whatever happened, cut deep, like into the muscle. So, you know, it wasn't like deep. Like, I can't remember how deep it was, but it was pretty deep. I can't remember, like, off the top of my head how deep this cut was, but it was really, really deep. And yes, I realize that is what she said. But, you know, it was a very, very unfortunate thing that happened. Because, you know, at that time, we were planning, or the school was planning on going to the middle school that I used to go to for a for a swim in their pool, because you know it's been a very hot spring. You know, it's getting close to summer, and then of course this happens, and you know that comes around, and the doctor's like, well, you can't swim until, you know, your leg is healed. You can't. I couldn't even step into water. Like it was safe to me to shower, but I couldn't take baths. I couldn't swim. I couldn't keep my leg into underwater for fear that the stitching might get loose and then, you know, get infection, or even worse, the damn thing starts bleeding and I lose like a shit ton of blood before I'm able to make it to a hospital. Because Delphi at the time, you know, was a 20 to 30 minute trip to Lafayette. Like now it's like a 10-minute trip, because there's a freaking big ass highway that runs right next to Delphi now, called the Hoosier Highway. So, you know, very, very fortunate that the leg didn't start bleeding. I'm very, very lucky to be here, you know, still, again. This is probably the very first near-death experience I ever, you know, experienced, because this could have been way, way worse. And like I said, the doctor was very, very surprised that they didn't find any kind of glass. So, you know, it was all really, really crazy. So, that's that story. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do apologize about how long this video was, but I wanted to tell that specific story in general, just to like get it out there. And this, of course, is, you know, celebrating 10 years of being on YouTube. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. This video's gone on long enough, so thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like if you enjoyed it. And also feel free to leave me a subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check out my Twitch in the description below. Leave me a follow and hit the notifications button on here and over on Twitch, so you get notified whenever a video comes out here and whenever I go live on Twitch. And most of all, thank you guys so much for all the support. I really do appreciate it. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.